Please go ahead, sir. We are live now.
Good morning, everyone, all the respected panelists, the faculty members, and students. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this IPR awareness program on patenting for academic institutions with Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Technology, Tripura. Uh, all the esteemed panelists, I would like to thank the Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Technology for giving us this opportunity. Ms. Tripti Pandey, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje, sir, thank you so much for joining us. To begin the program with, I would like to invite Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje, IPR Lead, IPFC SHM, and Director, Patlex Business Solutions, to kindly give a welcome address. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirti, and a very warm welcome to everyone for this IPR awareness program on patenting for academic institution with Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Science and Technology, RIPSAT, Tripura. This particular program has been organized by ASSOCHAM. This program is fully funded by Intellectual Property Office, Patent Office, Government of India, and this is with a broader vision of sensitizing the students, faculties, researchers about the different facets of intellectual property rights. ASSOCHAM has been the implementing partner for this particular program. ASSOCHAM is an industry chamber based in New Delhi, which has been involved into policy making activities. Uh, in case of intellectual property rights, ASSOCHAM has been associated with various activities, including intellectual property rights awareness, IPR boot camps. We are helping the startups, MSMEs, the corporates about sensitizing about IP, as well as providing them full support through IPFC, Intellectual Property Facilitation Center, from patentability to entire prosecution and licensing, like connecting them even with the corporates. We are actually involved as ASSOCHAM IPFC. ASSOCHAM IPFC, yeah, we have got two IPFCs, one in Bangalore, which is represented by Ms. Kirti here, and one in New Delhi, represented by Ms. Bhavna Mittal here. We are privileged to conduct all these programs supported by Indian Patent Office, and this entire week we have been conducting the programs for pharmaceutical educational institutions, and we are very privileged to collaborate with RIPSAT Tripura. I would say first program in the Northeast region for this particular year, and I'm on a personal level, I feel privileged and happy to collaborate with one of my teachers, I would say, Dr. Suvakanta Dash. He has taught me, and also I had that opportunity to visit RIPSAT 2 years back for one of the ASSOCHAM programs as well, and the kind of growth for the institute that we have seen in last 2 years under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Suvakanta. We are really privileged, sir, to have you on board. On behalf of ASSOCHAM, I welcome all the participants, all the faculties, researchers, Dr. Suvakanta Dash from RIPSAT, Ms. Tripti Pandey from Examiner Patent Office, New Delhi, from Government of India, and all the faculties as well as researcher. I just have a request for all the participants: get benefited by the program, ask as many questions as possible. This is a rare opportunity, and I'm very, I think, really proud that we have got the maximum attendance in this particular program, since this is seventh program that we are doing this year. This is the maximum attendance, and I think all credit to the institute for, getting involved, as well as getting involved into the IPR awareness as well. Thank you and welcome everyone. Over to you, Kirti.
Thank you so much, sir, for the welcome address. Moving further, I would like to invite Ms. Tripti Pandey, Examiner of Patents and Designs in the Patent Office, New Delhi. A brief introduction before ma'am takes over. She has an experience of more than 2 years as an examiner at the Patent Office, with a degree in Masters in Organic Chemistry from University of Delhi. She has also done her WIPO DL301 course on patents and is a part of the ongoing WIPO advanced training course on patent search and examination in the pharmaceuticals and biotechnology fields. She has also been a part of the WIPO International Seminar on harnessing public research and for innovation in the time of COVID and beyond. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, one and all. It's an honor to be a part of this IPR awareness program on patenting for academic institutions and to talk about functioning of the Indian Patent Office with Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Science and Technology. As already been introduced by Ms. Kirti, so I would like to begin with my presentation and I hope that you'll get benefited from it. So is my presentation visible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let me begin. So I'll be telling you about the functioning of the Indian Patent Office filing to post-grant opposition. First of all, let's talk about property first. Whenever we talk about property, what comes to our mind? It's usually the land, the gold, flat, shops, cars. These are all movable or the immovable property. But what about those property which are created by our mind? Those creation by our mind comes into the category of intellectual property. So patents, design, trademark, copyright, GI, these are all intellectual property. And today we'll be talking about patent specifically. First of all, let me tell you what is IP. IP is the ideas and expression of the human mind that have certain commercial value. If you are having an idea and you put it into something that is, have some commercial value, then it is called intellectual property. So if we talk about patents, so what is patent? Patent is the exclusive privilege or rights which is granted by the government of India to the patentee for inventing a new product or a process. And this exclusive right is helpful in excluding others from making, using, or selling an invention without the consent. And this right is granted for 20 years. And in return, the applicant has to disclose his invention to the office, and this will ultimately encourage the creativity and innovation. Also, one thing to keep in mind is it is a territorial right. So this patent, if granted to the inventor, is valid only in the territory of India and not worldwide. So why we should patent our invention? If we have something, if we have invented something, a product or a process, why there is a need to patent it? First of all, as I told you, it's an exclusive right. So you can prevent others from imitating your invention. You can have some commercial gain if you are selling it, giving license to other companies. So in a way, you get commercial benefits from it. Another thing is you can attract funds from the investor. If your invention is good enough, then many other companies would like to invest in your invention, would like to work with you. It will ultimately build reputation of the patentee as well as of your institution. Like if there is some invention from Ripsat Tripura, so obviously ultimately the institution will be will have some reputation from it. It will also boost R&D, because if you are disclosing your invention to the public, obviously the public will get to know, okay, this is something which is going on, this is something we can explore more on. So it will ultimately boost research and development. And the if we see the what will the benefits for the country, it will have some economic growth. Obviously, if there is invention, if we have patented invention from our country which is working well, it will ultimately benefit the country as well. So first of all, I am talking about invention. Invention, what is invention in terms of the act? Whenever we talk about invention, we talk generally, but what is written in the act? According to our act, Patent Act, invention means a new product or a process involving an inventive step and capable of industrial application. I'll be telling about each one of it. So the main focus is it should be new, it should have some inventive step, and thirdly, it should have some industrial application. So what is new? What is novel? So according to Act, an invention is novel if it has not been disclosed in the prior art. So what does it mean if it has not been disclosed before? Prior art is something which has already been published before you have filed a patent, before you have put it into the office for the filing purpose. So if it has been published or it has been presented, then it is already known to the public, and this disclosure can be in any form. It can be in implicit form or explicit form. Means it could be, directly telling it to the public or indirectly telling it to the public. So if it has already been known before filing to the patent office, it is not novel. So that is why we say always file before you publish. Another thing is inventive step. This is the another criteria. A feature of invention that involves technical advancement as compared to the existing knowledge, or having economic significance, or both, and that makes invention not obvious to a person skilled in art. See, if your invention is new, fine, that is a novelty thing. But what about you have invented something, but it does not have any technical advancement, or it is just similar to the one you have done before. It is new because you have improved or you have make little changes to it, but it is not technically advanced. So obviously it has some technical advances. Also, it has some economical significance as well. Then it fulfill the criteria of inventive step. Another thing is capable of industrial application. Like you have invented a method of treating a person, like method of removing a tumor from a human body. It cannot be, industrially applicable. So it cannot fulfill the criteria because it's just a method of treatment. So these are the example that mere discovery of something which is already existing, like you have discovered a plant or an animal which is already existing in the nature, is not something which is industrially applicable, industrially produced, or something which does not have any economic viability or a method of treatment. So this is the third criteria that your invention has to fulfill. It should be new, it should have some it should be inventive, and the third is it should be capable of industrial applicability. So I have given some examples of what are the matters that are patentable. First of all is the product. If you have a new compound, or since it's a pharma institute, so you have invented a new drug, a new composition, that can be any composition, polymer composition, skincare composition, insecticidal composition, which is new and not known before, a process, it can be a process also, or a device also. So these are some examples of patentable subject matter, but obviously I have already told you that these things have to fulfill our criteria of novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. So the topic which I have to discuss is about the patent filing process. So I'll be telling you about this in detail. First of all, who can apply for patent? So this comes into our mind. Why are we studying about patents? Can we apply for patents? What is the requirement? So first of all, let me tell you, there is no age bar for applying for patent. If you have some invention which is new and you think that it is capable of, it is capable of getting a patent, then you must file it. First of all, what are the requirements? You should be the true and first inventor of the invention. The inventor himself come to the office and can file it. Another thing is you can be the assignee of the person. Like, so the inventor has assigned some other person, but it should be a legal assignee. He has assigned another person that can you file on behalf of me? So yeah, that can be the case. Another is a legal representative of any deceased person. If the person has died before filing the patent, but his legal representative can file for the patent. Another thing is application may be made alone. It is not a condition that only one person can file for a patent. It could be filed alone or jointly by the person, as I have mentioned above, and with any other person. So alone and jointly can be the case, true and first inventor can be the case, assignee can be the case, and legal representative. So before filing, before coming to the patent office for the filing purpose, you must know these things before, that your invention should be, first filed and then published. If you have published it before, there are certain exceptions also for this publication thing. But if you have disclosed it in public, or other people know about your invention before filing, then this will create a problem, because we look for prior art. Do not display or share your invention with other people. Don't wait until the invention is fully developed. So sometimes it comes to our mind that I am working on something, but I have not completed it. It is still in the procedural phase. Shall I wait for another 1-2 years before filing for a patent? What should I do? My invention is not, such which will get a patent. So what should I do in that case? See, if you think that you are doing something which is unique, which is new, then you must file for provisional applications. I will be telling you about that also. Provisional application does not require you to completely disclose your invention, or completely, you just have to give a gist of your invention. You have to just tell us what are you working on. It need not to have claims, it need not to have all the information, but the gist, but the important information should be disclosed. And then you can wait for another 12 months to file the complete specification. Another thing is, one patent covers only one invention. You cannot feel like I can claim multiple invention by filing one patent. In that way, I have to give fees one time, or in that way, I have to give, document once. No, only one invention can be covered in one patent application, and protection is only for 20 years, and that too provided you have to pay renewal fees to us. And another thing which I've already told you, it's a territorial right. So don't think that your patent has been infringed in some other parts of the world, and you are thinking, why I have got patent in India, then why other people are using, in the beyond the territory of India, because it's a territorial right. So these things should be kept in mind before filing. So what are patent applications? How can it be filed? So there are three routes via which you can file the application. First is your PCT route, another one is convention route, and third one is ordinary route. So let me tell you about the ordinary route first. You can either file provisional application, as I have already told you, and within 12 months you can file for complete specification. Or you have done your research work, you have invented something, and you are good enough to file the complete specification, then you can directly file complete specification. Yours work will be published within after the expiry of 18 months. It will be published, and then after you have requested for examination, it will come to in the module of the examiner for the examination purpose. Another route is PCT route and the convention route. So convention route is the route followed by the member states of Paris Convention for Protection of Industrial Property. So if you have an application which has a priority date of, which is claiming a priority date of the same or similar application for a patent filed in the patent office, then you can file for a patent in one or more convention countries. Like if you have filed here and then you want to go to some other countries, or you have filed in some other countries and you want to file in another member states of the Paris Convention, then you can follow this route. But the condition is, in order to get this convention status, you have to enter into the national phase within 12 months. So 12 months from the date of earliest priority, you have to enter the national phase of India. So what about the PCT route? Why is it different? So PCT route is obviously accessed by the member states of Paris Convention Treaty, and here the difference is that you get 31 months time to enter into the national phase. Another thing, if I tell you about PCT route, is that it provides an international, it gives you an time of 30 to 31 months to enter into the country. Also, you can have your search report prepared, you can have a preliminary examination report prepared, and in that way you get to know that whether your application is good enough to enter into the member states of so many countries, because you or to apply in multiple country via this PCT route. So you get a time to think about it. So here also you file for complete specification, and then it is published according to the 18 months from the date of priority. And then we if you file the request for examination, then we examiners get it into our module. And what are the steps we follow? We will examine your application based on those criteria: novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability. And there are certain other criteria also, that whether your invention is patentable subject matter or not. So we'll be looking at those also. Also, whether it is, related to defense purposes, related to atomic purposes, then we have to look at it in certain different ways. After examining it, we put our report to the controller. So there is two-tier system. After we examine it, then the controller has the authority to see whether it is done appropriately or not. Then FER is issued. After FER is issued, applicant gets the time of 6 months to reply back if there is certain objection, which applicant can, change. Also, he gets another 3 month, up to 3 month extension. He can he can submit form 4, and he can, get a time of 3 months to reply back. If amendment has been made by the applicant, then again examiner look into it. Again, the subsequent examination report is issued, and after that, either your application will go to the hearing part, or it will be disposed in a way. It could be rejected also. If it is not fulfilling our criteria, it can be granted also. So this is the whole process, if I say. So examination process is like this. First of all, whenever you file for examination, so we'll see the detailed classification. What happens in detailed classification is we look for IPC, International Patent Classification, where we segregate your application according to different fields, whether it belongs to biochemistry, chemistry, mechanical, or another fields. We have different examiners related to different fields, so they examine it differently. Then we'll have some formal examination. Formal examination means we'll see whether you have submitted your documents appropriately. So what are the documental requirements? I'll be telling you in the next slide. So you have to submit all the forms, submit all the signed forms, and then the technical examination on the different technical aspects. Then the report is submitted to the controller. Then what happens is, if the controller feels that the report made by examiner is not sufficient, he can just refer it back to us. We can then look for other prior arts, other problems, other issues that we have not seen before. So it is referred back. If it is an order, then it can be granted also. Means if your invention is perfect enough and the examiner feels like, no, it is fulfilling all the criteria, it can be directly granted also. What happens when there are certain objections raised? As I told you, if the objections are raised, then applicant can amend it into 6 months plus 3 months extension period. And then afterwards, again, it is allotted to the examiner to follow the same steps. If you have not responded back to the amendments, then your application is abandoned. And what if you have replied and then again controller has reviewed? Then it can go to the hearing stage. If in hearing stage the amendment suggested by the controller is removed by, objections has been removed by the applicant, then the patent is granted. If no objections has been changed, or objection has been sustained, or applicant is not able to reply, then the application is refused. So these are the cases what happens in the examination process. So patent filing requires some formal aspects to be cleared. So these are the list of forms which you can clearly see in our schedule 2. You can see our rules, you can see our acts, you can get to know about all the details of our form. So these are the mandatory forms. So when we check for the formal requirement, we look for these mandatory forms. First of all, the first form is Form 1, which is application for patent. There you have to give there we allot you an application number, your date of filing is put, the applicant name, inventor's name, everything is there. If I give you a sample of Form 1, this is the sample of Form 1, where you will be given an application number, you will be given a filing date. This date is very much necessary because this date helps you in, that starting period of your 20-year term. So we'll give you this date also. What type of application is there? Is it an ordinary application, convention application, or the national phase PCT national phase application? Applicant name, category of the applicant. This category of applicant is very much necessary in, regarding fees. Like we have different fees for different type of natural persons. Then who is the inventor? Then you have to give the title of the invention. I'll be telling you about the detail of the title, how it should look like. Then the address for service. So these are the detail which is given in the Form 1. You have to submit proof of right. Like if the applicant and the inventors are different, then you have to submit that yes, the inventor is allowing your, applicant that yes, this is the applicant who will be, putting forward the patent application. You will get the time of 6 months for that after filing. This is the most important thing. Next is Form 2. Form 2 is regarding provisional and complete specification. As I told you, you can file for provisional specification and then you can take the time of 12 months to file the complete specification. This Form 2 is filed along with the application form, that is Form 1. Form 3 is foreign filing details. Like if you are filing it in some other countries, you have to give us the detail that yes, we are filing it in some other countries. Or even if you are not filing, then also we want after every 6 months that you should tell us, you should tell the office that yes, what is the status of your application in other countries. Then these are the documental detail. But if you have not requested for examination, your application will not be examined. It is just with us, but it will be published, but it will not be examined. So Form 18 and 18A, 18 is for the request for examination and 18A is for the expedited examination, which I will tell you later on. So this needs to be filed within 48 months. So after filing, you can take the time of 48 months and then decide whether you want your invention to be examined or not. Maybe that could be the case that during this 48 months, you realize that no, your invention was not novel, your invention was lacking something, and you don't want to do it. So you can do that. That is why you get a period of 48 months to decide. Another thing is fees. Fees is very much required. It could be paid in cash or DD. This has to be fulfilled, like all the documents which requires fees should be submitted along with fees only. Then Form 28, if the applicant is a startup or a small entity, then we want this form as well. This status of startup and small entity you can obtain from DPIIT. Then Form 5 for declaration of inventorship. So this has to be submitted within 1 month. This is submitted regarding that yes, these are the inventors, these are the whole sole inventor for this invention. So this has to be submitted within 1 month. Form 26 is about PA or GPA, that is power of authority. This has to be submitted within 3 months. Like if you are not, if you have appointed an attorney or an agent to file in behalf of you, then you have to give this authorized power of attorney to him or her that yes, on our behalf, this agent or this attorney will file the patent. These are the optional forms that if you want that yes, I want my publication, my application to be published before so that I can go for examination and my file is examined also and I'll get a patent quickly, then you can file for request for early publication. That needs to be done before 18 months because after 18 months we'll be publishing it by our own. So if you want it before that, then you have to file for this. And another forms are Form 6 and Form 13. These are forms for amendment. Form 6 and like Form 6, if you want to change the name of applicant, and Form 13 is for change of address of applicant, address of service. So or some technical amendment, like you want to delete your claims. You have filed it before, but now you realize no, these are not the claims that I want. You can delete or make some certain little amendments. Then you can file for this Form 13. So I've already shown you Form 1. So let's come to fees. As I told you, we have different fees. So these are the fees detail. You can see our Schedule 1 and you can just get an idea what are the fees details. So as I told you, you can accelerate your application process. And what are the steps for acceleration? You can file for Form 9, that is your prior publication. So publication before 18 months can be done by putting the, by requesting in Form 9. This can be done by applicant. And if you have requested for publication, it is published within a month. So after, like if you want your application to be quickly disposed of, then you can do this, that after filing your patent you can file for early publication, you can file for request for examination, and then it will be examined. And another thing was I was telling you was 18A form for expedited request for examination. So this expedited request for examination has certain exceptions because not everybody can apply for expedited request. So let me tell you who can apply for expedited examination. First of all, startups. So we have given this privilege to startups, small entities, applicant who is a female or a joint applicant where one is female, the department of the government and other government establishments, you can refer to our section there, they have given the requirements who fulfill this criteria, where in PCT India has been chosen as ISA IPEA, International Search Authority and International Preliminary Examination Authority. And another is where Indian Patent Office has signed an agreement related to PPH, we say Patent Prosecution Highway. I will not go in detail. So there we can, we allow those applicants to file for expedited examination. So these were all the, formal requirements. Now we come to technical requirements. As I have already told you, the 3 conditions that we look for. So another thing is how your application, your specification should look like, how your claim should look like, how your abstract should be like. So these are the technical requirements. First of all, provisional specification. So provisional specification is filed when you have conceived an idea, but you require time. You are not, fully, you have not fully developed your idea, but you have, in mind what you are going to, you can go for provisional specification. So what your provisional specification should disclose, it should describe the nature of your invention and should have description of the essential feature of your invention. You need to include the claims and details, like you don't have to tell everything, but yeah, the gist of the invention. What are the advantages? As I told you, you get a time of 12 months to fully develop your invention and to analyze whether it is it has certain market potential or not, whether it is good enough to or not. Then you can decide whether to file for complete specification or not, or just back out. You can think about it. Also, you get a time to establish priority rights. Like, there is a possibility that during those 12 months some other person come to our office and decide, no, I have similar invention, what should I do? But since you have got the priority right over your invention, you will be considered as the main person who will get the patent, and your patent right is reserved with us. Next is the content of complete specification. Obviously, we want title. So your title should not be like a composition. So a composition cannot be a title. A device, it cannot be a title because it is not, telling us what your invention is about. So it should not be more than 15 but it should be specific related to your invention. Background of the invention, we want a background, like from where you got inspiration and how did you evolve, what are the problems in the prior art that your invention is trying to solve. So we want a statement of the field where your invention belongs and the description of the related prior arts. Then we want a summary, a brief summary of the nature and substance of your claimed invention. It can, your summary can include advantages or how it is solving the existing problems, and also it should have some objective why you are doing it. Then in the detailed description, so this is very much important because whenever we study about your claims, we studied it in accordance with your complete specification. So complete specification and claim examination goes hand in hand. So your description should have fully and particularly describing your invention. Another thing is it should disclose the best method of performing the invention. Like you have told about the invention, but you are not disclosing how it has been done. You have to disclose your best method. As I told you, patent is granted in return of disclosing your invention. So it is very much important that you disclose the best method. You provide examples, working examples, like you have invented a process. Then you have to give certain example that how this process was executed. So you have to give example and drawings whenever necessary. Like if you have invented a device, so we want a drawing. Obviously, we want to know, to understand the invention, how this device looks like. So you have to, give a reference numbers to your drawings, and you have to describe all the equipments attached to it, all the materials that has been used to build that device. So in that way, we want drawing also. So this was about the specification. Now I'll be telling you about the claims. So obviously there should be at least one claim. Your specification could not be like that it is a running matter without any claims. You should have at least one claim. and it must define the scope of your invention, like what is your invention about. It should be clear and concise. It should not be like you are claiming something and you are just rotating around the things and telling us etc thing, but not the main invention. So we want clear and concise information about your invention. It should be fairly based on the matter disclosed in the specification. Like you are disclosing something in your specification, but you are claiming something else. That cannot be the case. As I told you, we read it simultaneously. So we want your subject matter should be disclosed in the specification. First claim is the main claim. It is the independent claim which gives an idea, okay, this is the invention about. And then in the dependent claims, you can tell us that yes, this has this feature, this has this feature, but the main gist of the invention should be given in the first claim. And this must begin in the separate sheet after the completion of the specification. There should be a separate page for the claims. Another important aspect is the abstract, which we want. It gives a technical disclosure of your invention and has the concise summary, very small summary, just 150 words. And we want that as abstract, because when we publish your invention after 18 months, we publish the abstract. So your abstract must have certain idea that yes, this was my invention, so that after 18 months, when it has been published in the public, people know that what is this invention and this has already been done, so that nobody repeats your work. So this abstract should give all the necessary detail. So other procedural aspects, as I was telling you about the amendments, so little bit information about the amendments. So amendments can be voluntary, like applicant feels like I have submitted this application, but certain changes has to be made. I have to change the address of service, or I have to delete certain claims. Then it could be done voluntary also. But sometime in the FER stage, like first examination report stage, we give the objections to the applicant, and then the applicant decide that yes, I want to make certain amendments in order to fulfill the patentability criteria. Then the amendment can be done in that case also. So there are two cases: voluntary cases and to meet the objection raised by the office. In voluntary, formal change in address of service or nationality, technical deletion of claims while entering national phase also. And this is a very important thing, that whenever you want to make any amendment, you have to give us the marked up copy. What is the marked up copy about? Marked up copy is you have to tell us that yes, earlier it was this, now we are deleting this claim or we are amending this changes, and then this is the new form. So we want this form, like along with form 13, you can give a disclaimer that these are the changes, correction, and the explanation that why are you making the changes or why this has been added. Like if you want to add the missing feature which you might forget, then you have to give us the detail that yes, this was existing in my specification, I have already disclosed in my specification, but I forgot to tell or forgot to disclose in the claims. You can do that, but we want an explanation that yes, it was disclosed before. So to meet the objection raised by office in the FER stage or in the later proceeding, so in that case also you can make the amendments. Now the important topic, like my topic was filing two opposition procedures. So I'll be telling you this filing procedures has already been done. Now I'll be telling you about the opposition proceedings. Now this question comes to our mind, like why opposition is required. See, when we are granting you patent, we are giving you the exclusive right. You have the monopoly to use it according to you. You can have certain commercial gains later on. So when we are giving you the power, there should be restriction to it if your invention is lacking something. Like we are giving you this monopoly to use your invention, but you have wrongfully obtained it. This is not your invention, somebody else's invention, or you have not followed certain requirements that has to be followed. So that is why we have included opposition proceedings also. Opposition proceeding refer to the administrative procedure that enable the third party to challenge the granted patent or the pending application. Means it is not the case that this opposition can be filed before a grant or after grant. It can be filed in both the cases. And the only purpose is to filter your frivolous, incomplete, or false claims. Because there can be case that some wrong wrong application has been patented or is being pending in the office. So that is why this opposition proceedings has been made. So what are the grounds for opposition? If I say, first is it is already publicly known or used in India. So if it has already been known, maybe the examiner has missed certain prior arts or has not known that yes, it was already disclosed. So that can be a ground for opposition. Another is it is disclosing the biological disclosure of biological material not sufficient. What does it mean? That we have a clause in our form 1 where we want the applicant to disclose whether there is certain biological material used in his application, and if it is, then he has to take the approval from our authority, NBA, National Biodiversity Authority. Unse they have to take their approval, but he has not declared it. That can be another ground of opposition. Wrongful obtaining, like two people were working together and one, like it was my invention, but my colleague who is envy of me that why he's getting so much recognition or something like that may disclose my invention and get it patented. But you have to prove. The burden of proof is with the person who is opposing. He has to prove that yes, it was my invention and it was wrongfully obtained by another person. Prior publication, again, if you have not filed your patent and have published it before, as I told you, there are certain conditions, like we give a certain time, because if it is your invention and you want it, you have published in certain documents or journal article, we give you, there are certain exception to it. But if it has been in prior publication way before and you are coming it now, or it has been published by some other people, some other authority, or in some other places, in some other countries also, then also we consider it as a ground of opposition. Prior claiming, see, if there are two applications with us, one application has been claimed before but has not been published so far or has not been granted a patent so far, and now comes your invention who has the same claim as claimed by the previous invention. As I told you, filing date gives you a priority. So the priority of the earlier application will be considered and your invention will not get a patent because your invention has not been claimed prior. So that is why this can be the ground of opposition. Another is information regarding foreign filing not filed, like you haven't disclosed and you are filing it in another countries and you are getting patents in another countries and you have not disclosed all the information to our office. So this can be the ground of opposition also. If your invention has something which is related to traditional knowledge of our country or of another country, but you haven't told our office and you are using those traditional knowledge things in your application, then also that this can be the ground. Insufficiency of disclosure, as I told you, your invention should disclose the best method, should disclose the scope, should disclose everything that has been done by you. So if there is an insufficiency, so that can be the ground. Again, if in case your invention has not fulfilled the criteria of patentability under 21J, like it's not an invention, it is unpatentable, non-patentable subject matter under section 3 or section 4. 4 is about your atomic defense purposes invention, then that can be the ground of invention. If you are coming from a convention country and you have not followed the timeline of 12 months, that can be another ground of your opposition. And another one is your invention is lacking inventiveness. It is, maybe it is novel, maybe we know we haven't find any prior art which is infringing it, or maybe we have not examined it, now we have just published it and we are going to examine it, but somebody who wants to filed a opposition procedure tells us that no, it is not inventive, my work was already in this field and he has just made a little modification and has come to your office for the patent purpose, then that can be another ground of opposition. So what are the procedures for the opposition, pre-grant opposition? So opposition can be filed by any person. So this is the main thing. Any person can file for your pre-grant opposition anytime after the publication, because obviously if it has been published, so it has been in public domain, and everybody knows that yes, this invention has been done. So we publish your invention after 18 months. This can be seen in our journal paper, and you came to know, okay, fine, this has been published and this work is quite similar to what I was doing, before. So you can file for pre-grant opposition. Pre-grant is something which can be filed before it is granted, after it has been published and before it is granted. So if the examiner believes that the opposition person is putting forward like a relevant matter and relevant proofs that yes, this has been infringed, or this has not been like not following the, it has been a like grounds of opposition, perfect ground for opposition, then he may consider that opposition procedure and can stop your application from going forward. Like if the examiner believes that the argument put forward are without merit, he can reject the opposition or he can consider the opposition. And after consideration, the applicant has to prove, he has been given the time of 3 months to prove that no, my invention was new, my work is new, my work does not fulfill the ground of opposition. And then after that, we can consider either granting that patent, refusing that patent, or maybe certain amendments will do the needful things. So what about the post-grant opposition? Post-grant opposition is filed by the person after it has been granted. So here the condition is that it is granted by the interested party. So there any person can file for opposition procedure. Here the interested party can file, and the condition is within 12 months after the grant. Like you cannot file for opposition. See, if it has been granted, again it has been published, everybody knows about it, we give you a window period of 1 year. If you think no, this was granted not appropriately, it has certain problems, or you have certain grounds of opposition to it, you can come to our office, but you should be the interested party. So what is the definition of interested party? As per our section 21T, interested party, the person interested is the individual who is involved in promoting research in the same field to which the patent application belongs. Or it can also refer to the entity that has a business on it, like manufacturing, trading, or financial interest in the patented goods. So only those party can file for post-grant opposition. So I have made this table to tell you about the difference between pre-grant and post-grant procedures. So pre-grant, like the section dealing with pre-grant opposition is our section 25(1) and post-grant section 25(2). Pre-grant can be filed after publication and before grant. Post-grant can be filed within 1 year of grant. Pre-grant can be filed by any person. Post-grant can be filed by person interested. And the form for the pre-grant is Form 7A, post-grant Form 7. For pre-grant, there is no filing fee. You just need to prove it. And for post-grant, there is a filing fee, because obviously we have granted it with keeping in mind all the aspects, but you got the chance that yes, if you had certain proofs to prove that no, it has been granted wrongfully, you can just file for it. So let me just tell you a status of patent application, and then I'll sum up it. Status of patent application can be either abandoned, it can be withdrawn, it can be refused, or it can be granted. So these are the certain things. First of all, when it is called abandoned, if timelines are not compiled by the applicant, as I told you, there are timelines to submit forms, timeline to file the application. You have to follow all the timelines. If you have not followed the timeline, then we just abandon we consider it abandoned. Your application is considered to be abandoned. If complete specification is not filed within 12 months of provisional specification, as I again this was told you way before, like after provisional you have to submit your CS if you want it to be considered for patenting purpose. So you get a 12 months window to decide whether you want it to go ahead or not. So if you have not filed it, then we consider it abandoned. Withdrawn, you can voluntarily request us, like you don't want to go further with it, you don't think that your invention was capable enough to go public, or you don't want to get patent on it, you can just withdraw your invention by filing Form 29. Or you can request for if your request for examination is not filed within 48 months, you get a time of 48 months and you have not requested us for examination, then again it is deemed to be withdrawn. Also, one more thing to keep in mind is that before the issuance of FER, if you don't want it to be examined, like FER is first examination report. But if you have decided, no, I don't want to get it examined, I don't think I want to get it examined, but you have paid the fees. So what to do? So before the issuance of FER, if you want to withdraw it, your 90% of the examination fee will be refunded by the office. So when it is said to be refused, if the application cannot be granted as per the requirement of the act, like if the controller feels, no, this application is not as per the requirements of a patent, what we call a patent, it is not fulfilling the requirements. So we need not to grant it. So that in that case, it is deemed to be refused by the office. And if everything is perfect, everything is sorted, it has fulfilled all the criteria, it has like patentable subject matter and all the objections has been removed by you, there is no pre-grant opposition, no post-grant opposition, nothing. Like post-grant can be filed after granted, but yeah, no pre-grant opposition and no other procedural changes, then your application is granted. And this is how your granted application granted certificate looks like. You get a patent number, your application number, it gives you a date of filing, and you get a 20-year term from that. The patentee name is displayed, your title, your everything. So yes, so this is the patent certificate that you obtain, and which is signed by our Controller General. So this is the patent. Thank you so much. So this was everything about filing to opposition procedure. I hope you understand a bit, and you might have some queries to know, so that we'll take at the end of the session. So that is it from my side.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a beautiful presentation and taking us through the entire patent process. I request all the audience or the participants to kindly type their questions in the chat box, which will be taken at the end. Now I would like to invite Dr. Suvakanta Dash, Principal RIPSAT, to speak a few words. But before that, a brief introduction about Sir. Sir is currently working as the Principal, Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Science and Technology, Government of Tripura. He worked as a member of Board of Studies at Assam University and has also been an expert committee member for inspections by AICT, PCI, and DPE. He has also been an expert reviewer in various peer-reviewed journals of national and international repute. Has been a president and conveners of different national and international conferences. Sir, it's a great pleasure to have you here. I request you to now speak a few words, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, you're on mute.
So I think Kirti, he's facing some technical issue. I just had a word with him. He's joining from the other link, or I mean through Pintu Dhas, Dr. Pintu Dhas name. So we just
Okay.
need to wait for a minute. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe what we can do in the meantime is, if we have Ms. Tripti available, can we take these questions in the meantime? Yeah.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Uh, Ms. Tripti?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a couple of questions for you. The first one, which is just asked to,
Hello.
I'm sorry. I think Dr. Das has joined. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Whether now I am audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll continue with my mobile, from my mobile only.
Absolutely, sir. Yeah.
So that will be better, because
Yes.
now some technical problem are there. Actually, from the beginning, actually I am trying to join in, in my, from my laptop, from my computer. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. But I am from my mobile from the beginning. Actually, I am attending the program. So first of all,
Sir, you are not audible to us now.
Sukanta, sir, I think there is a technical glitch.
program on patenting for academic institution. Actually, as in the first presentation, Madam has already mentioned that what is intellectual property and what is the intellectually property rights. So first of all, before my brief introduction, uh, I want to welcome Muhammad Nohid Alam, the Joint Director and Head, Assam IPR Council, Mrs. Tripti Pandey, Examiners of Patents and Designs, Indian Patent Office, Government of India, and in fact, my one of my good friend, Mr. Vijay Kumar Sipuje, Director, Patlex Business Solution and IP Lead, IPFC, Ashokam. So this we know that what is already Madam has informed that what is intellectual property right, what is intellectual property and what is intellectual property right. So now the students from my institution, from this Regional Institute of Pharmaceutical Science and Technology, that many students, they now from final year, starting from the B Farm, starting from the diploma, all they have joined in this program. So this year we have also started this PG courses in pharmaceutics. So whenever we'll go for any type of research, so whenever after the any final compound we are getting, then if the final compound is having certain novelty, then we should think for patenting. So this awareness is very much essential to the institution who are involved in the research and development, and after they will get the any product which is really helpful for the society and for their for their patenting. From this type of a program, it will helpful for them that how they will go for the patenting, and in a long term, whenever they will contact with the our patent office of the India, intellectual property India, that our patent office in the India, and particularly that this Patlex business solution, whatever I heard, you are taking your initiative, then it will be helpful for all the scientists or all the pharma scientists who are involved for the development of the drug. I am not taking much time because, as all of you know, that the Pharmacy Council of India, the last date of the filling of the application, online application, is today is the last date. So many of the formalities you have to fill up. I am very extremely sorry to all the experts that I could not give that sufficient time to all of you. And with this my small word and a small your speech. Again, I am thankful to all the partners for taking the initiative for the conduct of such type program, so that the students of pharma student, particularly from all over India, they will be getting benefited. Particularly that I am thankful to our Mr. Sipuje, once he has already visited to my institution, and what pain you are taking, and continuously you are working for your profession, because I know him from the beginning, from the when he was in graduate from Government College of Pharmacy. He was so energetic and so professionalism he's having, so that he's thinking that at least the pharma people should, pharma persons or pharma student, new budding pharmacist should know what is the patenting, and in future if some of the students, they will go for the research and development, and they can go for this type of program will be really helpful for them. Thankful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. Before proceeding further, we would like to take up the questions which we have received in the
Okay.
chat box. So, one of the question we've received is, we have got published few patents in Indian government. How much time will it take to get it granted?
Okay, so see, if it has been published and you have requested for examination, because if you have requested for examination, then it might have been segregated according to the field and has might landed up into the module of examiners. So after we follow a system of, first come first basis, we examine the application as it comes into our module, and whenever it will come into the examiner of the, respective field of your invention, then it will be, examined. If there is no objection raised, then it might be granted after the approval from the controller. But if there are certain objections, then you have to clear those objections, you have to reply back, and after the removal of all the said objection, it will be granted. So just wait for the procedures.
Yeah, I think let me a bit interrupt here, and I can directly answer this question as a practitioner. So, Dr. Vignesh, to be honest, there is no specific timeline as per the act or rules to grant a patent in, let's say, this much duration. But in general, as a practice, I would say expedited applications are getting granted very early. In fact, recently we had an application which got patent granted from filing to grant within 7.5 months time. For us, that was, I would say, kind of the least time period required. But generally, our like, and if you go with the normal examination, not early publication, then in that case also, at the max 3 to 4 years is the time, because 18 months waiting for publication. Thereafter, if you file the request for examination, there will be some time. Generally nowadays, FERs are getting generated very fast, as in 2-3 months may you would get your FER. After that, you have 6 months time, and thereafter you would go for hearing. So on an average, I would say 3 to 4 years in case of normal routine process without expedited. In case of expedited, you need to check your eligibility first for expedited examination, and those can get granted. But then as I said, there is no specific rule or section under which patent office has to grant it within a specific period of time.
Thank you, sir. Now we have another question. A product once patented, will it be valid only within India or throughout the world?
I have already answered you this question when I told you that it is a territorial right. So obviously it will be valid within India only.
Thank you, ma'am.
So
Then
there
there
is another question that I would like to answer, that can we patent a product online? So I am just sharing you a link. Okay, so you can do that. So you can file for the patent online also. So this is the link from where you can do the need.
Thank you, ma'am. And then there's another question. Sir, if I got a fresh topic without patent and I started doing research in it, and after some days I heard that someone else is just now taking patent on it, what will happen? Will my work is unusable or it is totally dependent upon luck? Okay. So he started doing research, and after some days he got to know that someone else has
So
applied
do you
for a
want to
patent.
answer this question? This is for you, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can take this question, Tripti, no worries. But I think it's like we have the first to file system. आपके दिमाग में जब भी आइडिया आ जाए ना, this is coming from Muhammad Iqbal Hussain. The moment you have an idea in your mind, you must go for patent filing. Like it's like first to serve. जैसे जो सबसे वो रेस है and जो सबसे आगे दौड़ेगा, he would be the one who would be getting. So you have to ensure actually, like you would file first. Now answering, will my work is unusable? Not like that. Actually, I think part of it, Iqbal ji, I'll cover in my session, जो कि licensing and commercialization पे है, technology transfer पे है. Yeah, I think that's my answer. Tripti, would you like to add something to this?
Absolutely, as you said, that yes, we have this. Like I also told you that do not disclose it before you file for patent. Don't publish it. Don't tell it to anybody. So, as you said, that yes, you have got a fresh topic, but you have not filed for patent, and you are just doing your research in it. And if a patent is granted, like I have told you, you have to prove it also. Like if you file for opposition procedure saying that no, this was my work, then you have to have the proofs that yes, it was my work. We cannot just consider it by your saying no, I had this idea in my mind first, because we see the filing date, we see when you have uh, you know put your idea forward in front of our office. So that is why I say file first and then disclose.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. So moving further, I would like to invite Mr. Vijay Kumar Shipuje, Director, Patlix Business Solutions, IPR Lead, IPFC SHM, to kindly give a brief session. I would like to introduce sir before handing over the floor to him. He's having a degree in M Pharmacy with LLB degree with over 16 plus years of experience with pharma corporates, law firms, and consultancies. He has conducted over 100 plus IPR awareness programs at various universities, colleges, bar associations, incubation centers, industries, chambers, and MSMEs. He's also the mentor Startup India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, and also a registered patent at the Indian Patent Office. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Kindly go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirti, for the introduction, as well as thank you so much, Ms. Tripti, for that wonderful session, which was very lucid and simple to understand, especially for the pharmacy students, I would say. And that has actually, I would say, set the floor for me, because the most important part of this IPR awareness campaign is about letting them know about the patenting process as such. And I think it was really good to hear from someone who is at patent office about all the activities that are happening at the patent office, the way, the procedural aspects specifically. No one better than, I would say, an examiner or controller from the patent office. So thank you so much. So I'm here to discuss about technology transfer and IPR licensing. And to be honest, it's a sheer coincidence, I would say, that early in the morning today, around 8 a.m., I got a call, and the person at the other side, uh, he mentioned that, sir, I'm from Rajasthan. I've got a patent for herbal medicine for the treatment of malaria, and I want to commercialize it now. and आप लोग खरीदोगी क्या? And I was like very happy, uh, very happy to listen that now I'm also an investor, I would say, or like, you know, people think me as a someone who can buy their patents, give them I would say $1 million rupees. And like, you know, since we have been flooded with a lot of memes nowadays, as well as the kind of impact Shark Tank India has got us on us, that everyone feels like, oh, I got an idea, I got a I got a patent now, and I want money. And yes, Vijay sir is the person who can give me money and buy my patent. To be honest, it's not something that is true. As a patent agent, we are involved into more of patent filing, or I would say getting your patent granted, giving you that legal protection. Why do you need us as a patent agent to practice in front of patent office? One of the important things about patents is that, like, you know, it's more of a techno-legal document. When I say techno-legal document, it means that like, you know, you are a technical expert, you understand your technology really well, but when you want a legal right for that, you need to put it in a proper format actually. And patent agents who are not lawyers generally, like, you know, they are the ones who would be helping you getting that patent granted. They are the ones who understand your technology first. Bhavna, can you please mute the other panelists? Yeah, thank you, Bhavna. So since it's a techno legal document, those scientists or those science graduates who understand a bit of law with specific respect to patent, in that case they can crack that examination as a patent agent, and they can practice in front of patent office. So patent agents are the ones who are involved into the I would say the patent filing, as well as drafting, prosecution, getting it granted, and that wonderful certificate that Ms. Trupti showed at the end of the session. Basically, the last slide, that certificate actually is something everyone aims for. But what after that certificate? Once you get that certificate, you have got a legal right to stop others or block others from using your invention. And every one of you, those who have got patents, we got some I would say queries as well in the questions as well in the previous session. Like, you know, once a, a product or a process is patented, is there a value associated with it? Would there be a Chatur Ramlingam, if you can correlate it with the movie Three Idiots? Would there be a Chatur Ramlingam who would come to you, sign a check for you, maybe the way the sharks are doing in Shark Tank India nowadays? Or maybe Chatur Ramlingam coming all the way from US to meet you and sign a check for you, and then use your technology, give you some kind of money. Most of the times, this is something myth or a misconception about patent system. A patent doesn't give you a right to commercialize the product. This is a very bold statement now. A patent doesn't give you the right to commercialize the product. Rather, patents are negative rights, the so-called negative rights, because patents exclude everyone else from not using the invention. In case of pharma, now let us think specifically about pharma. I discover a new drug, I get a patent for that. It doesn't give me the right to commercialize the invention. What it does is it blocks everyone else except me to use that invention. But if I have to commercialize the product, in that case, I have to conduct the so-called preclinical, that is animal studies, what you learn in pharmacology. You have to conduct the phase 1 studies on healthy human volunteers, phase 2 studies in patients, and phase 3 studies in a multi-continent, a large number of pool of patients, basically, the clinical trials. Once you conduct these clinical trials, thereafter only you would get the right to commercialize the drug. So to be honest, this patent has nothing to do with FDA, because the FDA, which is more about commercialization, approval of your products basically, right? That is something which is essential actually. And most of the times academicians have this concept that IPR or patent is part of regulatory affairs. No, that's not the case. IPR is different, and regulatory affairs, which is more about product approval, commercialization, is different. Then why are we discussing about commercialization or licensing or technology transfer here? Imagine a situation. I am a scientist. Let me take this. So we have got Professor Dr. L.V. Vigneshwaran. He's a faculty at one of the pharmacy schools. That's what I believe. He develops a product, he gets it patented, and thereafter he wants to commercialize it. But then he doesn't have that financial capability to commercialize that drug, because he doesn't have that financial backing to conduct the clinical trials. We know we require almost 20,000 crore rupees for commercializing the drug or conducting the clinical trials. 2 to 3 billion US dollars. That's what is expected. Now he doesn't have that capability to commercialize, but then there is someone sitting like Chatur Ramlingam who has that financial capability but lacks the ideas. He can't do research. In that case, Chatur Ramlingam cannot use the drug because it is patented by Dr. Vignesh. In that case comes a concept what we call as licensing or technology transfer. Always remember one thing: a patent never gets sold. Patent never gets sold means it is the product. Market point of view, it is the product that has to be sold. If that product has certain value, if that product can be commercialized, then only someone would come and take your patent. If you have a patent, no one is going to buy it just because you have got a patent. The product that is covered by the patent, that product, if it has got commercial value, then only it would be actually licensed out. It's not a patent. The product covered by the patent that has got a value, and that's when even your patent gets some value, or that's what we call as IPR valuation as well, or the so-called patent valuation as well. Yes, it is a property, it is an intangible asset, it has got some value associated with it. But when is this value? This value is when the product that is protected, legally protected by your patent, has got some value with it. That's when you would be Funsuk Wangdu, and some Chatur Ramlingam for sure would come with a blank check with you. And again, it would be based on, actually I would say, the kind of value your product actually has got. So it's like one person who is a researcher, who has invented something new, and there is another person who is more involved into business, I would say. Okay, in that case, when these two things combine, then the product can be commercialized as well. And that's where the concept of technology transfer or IPR licensing comes into play. the researcher, as a scientist, Dr. Vignesh is a good scientist. He gets a patent granted, let's say, and thereafter comes the I would say a bigger part to commercialize, identifying the right kind of partner who can actually, like, I would say, take the license, do some clinical studies, and commercialize the invention. The fact, unfortunately, in India is that the commercialization of patents is really very poor in India. This is the picture of the scientist, actually, like, many of us don't know, unfortunately. Like, based on whose character the Funsuk Wangdu character in the movie Three Idiots was based. Everyone knows Funsuk Wangdu, Amir Khan, but unfortunately, no one knows the actual original person, like, the scientist. But then, one more thing herein is, like, commercialization of patents is really poor in India. Reason being, as I said, it's not the patent which would be commercialized, it's the product. So, fundamentally speaking, you should work on a product which has got commercial value and then get it patented. So the process is, the way it should work is, we should work on a research project, be it a master's, undergrad, or like, actual research PhD project, which has got a commercial value, and then get it patented. What we do is, we patent the product and then identify a partner. Then we try to identify a partner. That's not the way to work if you really want to license out or commercialize your patents. So this is a general structure about, like, I would say a broader theme about my session. What you do is you ideate what we call as a hypothesis in your thesis, or like, maybe you are ideating, coming up, you're doing product development, then you are protecting your IP, and once you get your IP, you are trying to licensing it out, actually. But then the most important part herein is ideation level pe hi hota hai. Once you protect, it's also about whether it's protected or not, is not the key question. The key question herein is what kind of protection you have got. You ask a patent agent who understands the your technology, or who also understand the market and the legal scope of the invention, and he or she would be in a position to tell you whether that protection is sufficient for the product. It's never yes or no. It's always about what kind of protection you have got. Is it really protecting your product, or a competitor can very easily bypass your invention? And in most of the cases, unfortunately, well, like, we even analyzed few licensing cases wherein we understood that, okay, the product is patented, absolutely fine, the protection is not enough, we don't even need that protection, we don't need, we can work on that product irrespective of that patent. In that case, you're losing out on that opportunity. That's where it is very important that it's not about whether it is protected or not, but it's also about what kind of protection you have got for your invention. What kind of protection you have got for your invention. So when we think of IP licensing, the most important questions are when to do that, how to do that, who can do that, and what needs to be done. We'll try to understand all these questions, actually. Who can actually commercialize the invention, or who can license out patent? It's not as easy as we feel like. So for example, who is the real legal owner of the invention? Is it an assignee? Because we have the separate concepts of applicants and inventors. What if there is no applicant? If one of the students or professors files a patent application without including the institute's name, who would be the legal owner in that case? Whether it would be inventors, or let us say there is a project which is funded by an agency, then who is the real owner of that particular invention, who can license it out? That is key thing when we actually outlet. So it's like a property. I have got an iPhone and I have to give it to someone else. But then the first thing I have to sell it. Then the first important thing is, who is the real owner of the iPhone? Is it me, my daughter, or someone else actually? In whose name is the IP? Who is the assignee? Who is the applicant basically? In case of funded projects, like by the corporates or by government, most of the times the funding agencies are now ensuring that the legal rights are with them. You need to check the funding agency agreement that you are signing about where to who actually owns the IP related to that. Is there any clause under which you cannot commercialize on your own? You have to give some percentage to the collaborators as well at times. So all these things are complex, and it's not like I got a patent and I can actually license it out. Okay, you got a patent, absolutely fine, but who is the real owner of that? Is it you or someone else basically? So for example, coming back to the same example again, uh, uh, that is Professor Dr. LV Vignesh. Dr. Vignesh has got a patent granted, let's say, but he's just an inventor. He's not the assignee or applicant. He's not the real owner. Professor Vignesh cannot license out. Who is not a you are just an inventor, but the legal ownership lies with your institution or the collaborator or the company with which you are actually representing. Now, that's about who. How is it done? How is again a complex question rather than so we generally have two kinds of agreements, licensing agreements. One is exclusive, as the term suggests, it's only with one party, or it is non-exclusive. So generally, in case of pharmaceuticals, we always have exclusive agreements, because there would be a single player who would be selling that. Okay, but then in many cases, what can also be done is it's exclusive territorially. So for example, India is a big country now, and what happens is there is a patent granted for a particular drug. Clinical studies are all done, we have got an approval as well. Now what I do is, for half of the India, I give a right to one company, and for remaining half, I give the right to the another company. Now they are exclusive, but they are territorial. So for example, half of the India, only one player, and in other half, another player. Now it's a exclusive, but still you have what? Two licensee basically. So licensor, the one who has got IP, is the licensor, and the one who is buying your IP or licensing in out your IP, that is the one who call as a licensee. Now we can have two licensee basically, but still it would be an exclusive kind of agreement. Or else, let me tell you another case wherein, in case of exclusive license, so for example, I have a drug which is anti-diabetic as well as anti-obesity. Okay, so one company is selling it for diabetes treatment, the other company is selling it for obesity treatment. That can also be called as an exclusive agreement, or exclusive licensing, or exclusive technology transfer. Very common in pharmaceutical industry. Now let us think about non-exclusive agreement. Very common in telecom industry, wherein we have the 4G or 5G technology, let's say. Now 5G is coming very soon. So the big companies who have got 5G technology, the real owners of the 5G technology, so we have the big global giants actually. Those companies give the license to everyone as in the handset makers. So from Nokia, Samsung, Oppo, whatever, or even your Apple, everyone would have a license from the technology players basically. So this is non-exclusive. Any number of players can enter into the market, right? That's how. So it all depends on the kind of technology that you are playing into, or the kind of invention you have got, how many people are interested, how big is the market, whether you can actually fulfill the needs of the entire market. Based on all these things, your how is determined. First was who can license out. Second is how is it licensed out actually. Now the third thing what we would discuss is about when and what. So when so to answer when, we just need to understand the entire sequence. Ideation, you have a patent file, you get a patent granted, you have a 1 year post grant, and the patent is maintained. That's the sequence that my fellow panelist, Ms. Trupti, discussed in detail. Now, at what stage actually you should license out? So, to be honest, before patent filing, absolutely no. Don't license out before patent filing as such. First thing. I would always prefer filing a patent and then sharing the idea with the others or collaborating even although it's under CDA, confidential disclosure agreements. So patent filing basically. So after patent filing, you can actually license it out, but remember that there would be certain uncertainties in terms of the licensing value, because to be honest, filing a patent is just one step, first step in the process of entire patent prosecution or till the grant. जो भी journey है, this is just first step. What you file it may be really ambitious, but then what gets you granted is something that may be very narrow actually. So it is always preferred to license out once you have more clarity in terms of the scope of an invention. Rather, even the licensee जिसको आपका invention लेना है, that person would also love to have the clarity actually about what is the scope of the invention thereafter only. So in an ideal situation, you should license out after patent gets granted as such, but after patent filing as well, you can actually do that. Now we have tried to answer when, how, who can. We have an interesting thing here. Look at the technology transfer process, technology development, and commercialization. I just wanted to contribute, or I would say, give a disclosure here. This slide is coming from one of my friends who is a technology transfer specialist working with University of London, and with her permission, I'm using this particular slide. Now, technology development is one thing, and commercialization is a separate thing basically. So if you look at this, it's basically a linear thing. That's what we actually see. I have an idea, I develop the concept, I do a prototype, मतलब वो molecule को मैंने lab में बना लिया, I do the testing for that. Thereafter, I do in vitro, in vivo testing. I have the clinical studies done and commercial viable prototype is ready. I can sell the drug now. Commercialization mein, you have various activities, including the disclosures, defining the application, benefit, value, market screening for which market, evaluation like exploring the opportunities, commercial strategy including IP prosecution, and you also have value validation, co-development, or commercial agreement. These are linear things theoretically, but if you look at this actual process, this is how it works. What do? You have an idea, you are an academics, you have an idea, you do some research, it doesn't work, you go back again, come up with a newer idea, assess it again, you try to check if you can get you file a IP, let's say. You file a IP, you would check whether that IP is sufficient. You feel like, no, there are certain more studies required. You come back again, you do another studies, research. Your IP person, patent expert says, okay, these studies are insufficient, because patent office would always ask for the enhancement of therapeutic efficacy data for a pharmaceutical product. We don't have enhancement of therapeutic efficacy data basically. You go back, you do research, you come up again, you file a patent, and then you think now, oh thank god, finally I filed a patent. Now I'll look forward for, actually I would say, some kind of collaborator. You just check, look out for the collaborators. Someone is willing to buy your product but not license out. So selling is different. Selling is completely selling your rights, and licensing out or technology transfer is renting it out. हमारा घर जैसे हम लोग रेंट पे देते हैं ना, वैसे आपका पेटेंट आपने रेंट पे देना है किसी और को. That's what technology transfer or licensing is about. Okay. Finally you get your product patent approved, let's say, but then it may be at times the organization with which you are working when you filed a patent, that is no more, you're working with a newer organization who owns so it's a pretty complex process. It's not about it's not about it's not a linear process basically. So you have an invention, research is one part, protection is another, and commercialization is another. And that's where the word intellectual property rights come into play. Intellectual is about invention, okay, research. Property is about commercialization, and rights is about protecting it legally. So the rights are legal rights. Also, the technology transfer process is pretty complex actually, and it's not like I got a patent and I'll license it out actually. So just like when we transfer a property from one person to other, or just like we have driving license, or you have these if you open any software, you would have those agreement, I accept the you would sign that license agreement, and then only you have the access to the software. Basically something similar. License is basically a permission, and license is done on the stamp paper. It is notarized as well as it is registered through the respective authority as well. That's what a license is. Why is it necessary to license? To actually why to license out basically? Why to give my invention to third party? Because the kind of, as I said, in specifically in case of pharmas or life sciences, the bigger challenge is actually, I would say, about uh, the the value that is required, or the money required for I would say commercializing the product. When you require 2 to 3 billion US dollars, you can't put it on your own. Even the big companies, Indian companies, are not doing that. So you are sharing the risk. It would help you generate some revenue. It would increase market penetration. So for example, I'm a very small firm based in Tripura. I don't have that marketing capability all across India. And what I'll do is I'll license it out, give it to others, and they would share the revenue. Basically, it's kind of a franchisee model as well, I would say. Then you also have you reduce the cost for marketing. You are not taking everything on your own. You save a lot of time. It's all about collaboration. And for example, I am a collaborator with Ripsat. Ripsat has a product. Ripsat has that capability to do research. Ripsat comes up with a great herbal product, let's say. I have the capability to market that product. So we are collaborating. It's your product, your baby, your idea, and it would be sold under your name by me as a collaborator. So you are licensing it out, I am licensing it in actually. And what advantage I am getting? I don't need to put money into research. I don't need to put, maybe I need to put some money into production only. That's how actually it works. But then the bigger challenge especially in Indian scenarios is, once you license out the technology, you are creating kind of a competition, because the technology is transferred. And if you don't have a sufficient protection, IP protection specifically, that technology may not be something which would be exclusive to you. If that technology you are already providing to something else, he may be a competition for you tomorrow. Also, when you are giving out the product to me, it is very difficult to monitor my activities with that technology. You give me a drug and it is for diabetes, what I do is simultaneously I start conducting the studies for some other disease as well for on that particular product. Now that should also be covered in the agreement basically. But then that's what some of the difficulties with respect to a license agreement are. Typically, a license agreement is something which is similar to like our agreement of property transfer basically. So you would have those definitions, payment clause, confidentiality clause, liability termination, under what conditions, कितने साल के लिए licensing है, is it exclusive or non-exclusive, when would the royalty be paid to you and all. So all these things are actually included in the license agreement. Of course, we have a lot of different types of royalties, like royalties on sales होता है, जितना sales है, I mean how to fix that royalty as well, like कितना amount आना चाहिए. That is also something, because unfortunately our education system doesn't give us any idea about the economics as such, I would say. I mean, especially for the scientists. A scientist, I mean, of course, it's a very bold statement again, but a scientist may not be a really good businessman. He would need some kind of collaborators to understand the business as well as the economics. And that's where all these terms like fixed royalty, increasing royalty, decreasing royalty, time limited royalty, capped royalty, only 10% of the revenue, whatever revenue is, fixed royalty only 5%, increasing royalty first year mein 5% though, second year mein 6% though. All these things need to be, and again all these things depend on the kind of, I would say, the kind of invention it is, the kind of industry you are into, the kind of competition you have got in that particular sector or segment as well. And it also depends on the industry trends as well. Also, as far as patents is concerned, the kind of protection you have got based on that royalties actually determined. Also, important thing, how many years of patent term is left. फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू गॉट पेटेंट ग्रांटेड इन 2003, वैसे भी 2 साल ही बचे हैं, तो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ रॉयल्टी शुड बी पेड एक्चुअली. I'll rather wait for a year and 2 years and then launch without giving you a royalty. Because remember that, because there is always a question on the patent system. Always remember that the patents are for limited period of time, that is 20 years only. The essence of the patent system is never to create monopolies. The significance or the intent of patent system is not to create monopolies, but the reason rational for patent system is to promote the innovation and the innovation culture or the innovation ecosystem, I would say. And that's how and there is a cost, always cost associated with that. And to motivate or kind of I would say to get that cost recovered, you are getting the monopoly rights for minimal, or like I would say 20 years period of time. There are other clauses like diligence, improvement, indemnities, antitrust. Antitrust is something which is related to competition. Of course, these are legal matters basically, because as I said, although it's a technology, but it has actually got the license or the legal rights for that, and it's a legal thing to license it out actually. Some of the do's and don'ts, it's always preferred to speak to your agent or attorney or a lawyer, know what is the kind of IP protection you have got, analyze the situation, do the projections basically, and let it be very clear. So when you collaborate with any institution or when you license it out, the things should be pretty clear, transparent in terms of the technology or the patents as well. And there are a lot of anti-competitive practices which are not allowed in even in India. Something like use forced licensing. मतलब मेरे पास एक पेटेंट है, उसका लाइसेंस तभी दूंगा जब आप दूसरा पेटेंट का भी लाइसेंस दोगे, right? And many times it's all about the standards, what kind of standards we have got. Industry standard है 3%, So just don't ask for 3% of the royalty, because in your case, see, these are case to case basically, like, and so you need to understand the technology, understand the, I would say, the trends as well, like, to understand the market as well, and then that's how the royalty is determined. I would like to conclude with this particular slide, some golden rules I would call it as. Is the product that is licensed. Remember, it's the product that is licensed. आपके प्रोडक्ट का वैल्यू है तो ही लाइसेंसिंग होगा. Okay, IP definitely gives you an edge in negotiation. Again, it's never yes or no, but what type of protection is provided, and negotiation terms are dependent on the product and not on how big the institute you are, or whether you are a government institute, private institute. It doesn't matter at all. Like, for your the licensing, basically it's all about what technology you have, what protection you have, what is the market value, what is the commercialization value for that particular product, and, like, what kind of IP protection also you have got. So this is what I have to tell all about IP licensing. I know a bit different topic, or maybe something new, but then I thought this way we can actually, like, sensitize everyone about IP, as well as the commercial value coming out of IP as well, and how it needs to be protected as well as licensed out, or commercialized as well. So as I said, I've been practicing in the intellectual property rights, patent sphere specifically. We were also involved into some kind of herbal product commercialization. We had a specific client for which we tried to commercialize, or I would say license out, basically from academics. So if you have any ideas for which you have patent filed, or pending, or granted, or you have an idea on which you are working, we work with a lot of nutraceuticals and herbal players who are pretty interested in those ideas. They would be more than willing to commercialize your products as well. Oh, of course, this I am speaking on behalf of my organization and not on behalf of ASSOCHAM, actually, like, just to make it very, very clear as such. So that's what I have for all of you. I would be more than happy to take any questions with respect to IP licensing, IP protection, patenting, anything that you feel, or since I'm coming from pharmaceutical industry, anything which you feel, especially the students, in terms of careers, research, anything related to pharma, I would be more than happy to answer it. Over to you, Kirti.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a great presentation and helping us know about IP licensing and commercialization. I see there's one question. For provisional application, do one need to give the prior art also?
Oh, this is coming from Vikrant Agarwal. Okay.
Vikrant, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I think that would make more sense, actually. It's always preferred to give the prior arts, actually, as a practice. Okay, whatever is the closest invention for you, it's always preferred, actually. Whether it's a provisional or complete, I don't think that should really matter. Maybe we can have, if Ms. Tripti is there, if she would like to also comment on this. Just check it.
Ms. Tripti, ma'am?
Yes.
So would you like to share your views on this? So there is a question for provisional application. Do one need to give prior arts also?
So as I said, it is just the claims that you don't have to give, but you have to give the background of your invention, because this will give us the gist of the invention that you are working on. So I would say it would be good. It is necessary that you give a, prior art regarding your invention.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for answering. We have another question. Is there any law or act similar to Patent Act for licensing?
Well, I think that's good to see, actually, this kind of questions. So Vikrant, we don't have a specific law in India, but then all these things, even your confidential disclosure agreement, CDAs and all, and licensing, all this is actually covered under the Contract Act. So Vikrant, if you are a lawyer, or you can just Google out Contract Act, and that covers everything related to license. So it's basically a contract. Okay, so it's a licensing contract basically. Okay, so it's covered under Contract Act. No specific law is available in India.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering that. So we have another, we can wait for another 2 minutes for the participants to type their questions before concluding the session. So far, we have got very good interactive audience. I request all the participants to please type their questions in the chat box.
In the meantime, I just have a request for all the students. Just beyond jobs or beyond asking for a job, I really feel pharma sector is lagging in this. We need to make ourselves capable enough to start our own ventures, especially in the domain of startups, I would say, or so of course, even your government of India is coming up with so many policies. Even your new education policy says that the institutions need to promote more innovators, more entrepreneurs, startup owners, rather than just for the people, those who are asking. What I have observed actually, working with so many pharmacy colleges, the students always want to go for that, I would say, the jobs rather than having their own venture. So it's something which is pretty interesting. Go for it, innovate, start to collaborate, come up with newer ideas as well. That way it would be really helpful for the entire ecosystem as such. Yeah, Kirti.
Thank you, sir. We have another question which says,
It's a sub question. Okay, is the prior art must or optional?
must or optional?
Okay. And if referred prior art is not accurate, will that impact the provisional application grant? So first thing, Vikrant, provisional application, you need to file complete before it gets granted. First thing. Provisional doesn't get granted as such. Okay, that's one thing. Now about your question, is it must or optional on a public platform? I think I shouldn't comment much, rather than because this is something which is more of a practice, and this is more of, I would say, how what the so what you can do, Vikrant. To be honest, I have the clear-cut answer to this, but I can't say it in a public platform actually, because it's all about my practice as such, and how actually patent office evaluates it in terms of practice as a grant during the prosecution basically. But what I would definitely like to mention here in Vikrant, go through the act and the rules of patent office, and you would definitely get an answer for this, whether it's an optional or mandatory. That's my take on that. I would definitely like to see if Trapti wants to comment on this. Yeah.
So I would say, see, whenever you have think of an invention, obviously there is certain background that you are referring to. It is not like that once you wake up and you decide, okay, I would like to do this. There is certain background. So I think whenever you file for provisional, you should give us a certain background that inspired you, that made you do the improvement or to invent something. So as you are asking, it is optional or must. So I think it is very much required by the office that you submit your background along with your provisional application.
Yes, I think Vikrant, that's something which would answer your question very clearly then. Right. Yes. Yeah, Kirti. I think we really had a wonderful interactive session today, and thank you so much everyone for participating actually. Yes, over to you, Kirti.
Thank you so much, sir. Definitely, we've had a very wonderful session today, quite interactive and interesting.
Here, I would also like to extend my thanks to and sincerely appreciate the attention of all the participants of the RIPSAT Tripura, and also to the SHM and the organizing team. I would say that it was a pleasure to be a part of this IPR awareness session, and I am happy that I could share my knowledge on the subject matter. Thanks a lot.
It's a great pleasure, ma'am, to have you associated. So before winding up, I would like to invite Dr. Tejendra Bhakta to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, madam. Is it audible, madam?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Thank you. Respected distinguished guests, my dear learned delegates, my beloved students, and all participants, good afternoon to all of you. It is my great pleasure to have the opportunity to deliver the vote of thanks. To start with, we are highly thankful to Mr. Muhammad Mahid Alam, Joint Director, Head SOCAM IPR Council, to deliver his inaugural welcome address. And we have the pleasure to convey our heartfelt thanks to Madam Tripti Pandey, Examiner of Patents and Design, Indian Patent Office, Government of India, to deliver her lecture on functioning of the Patent Office and filing to post-grant opposition. Madam very nicely described about the different types of protection of intellectual properties, different types of schedule, including filing forms, various amendment and technical requirements for filing, various opposition procedure, and different types of grant. Thank you, madam, for your valuable speech. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Vijay Kumar Shipuje, Director, Patlax Business Solution, IPFC, SOCAM, to deliver his valuable speech on IPR licensing and commercialization. Sir very nicely explained about the property transfer, technology transfer, situation of commercialization in India, also about IPR protection, and also IPR licensing agreement about royalties. Sir, we are very much thankful to you about your nice explanation. I, on behalf of RIPSAT, express my deep gratefulness to all delegates, beloved students, and all well-wishers and mass media for their active participation to success of our program. Finally, my special thanks to our master of the program, Madam Kurti, for her melodious voice throughout the program, and each and every participants and delegates surely acknowledge our efforts, especially our Madam Bhavna Mittal, Professor Shubhakanta Das, and Mr. Pintu Dhar for their full effort to organize this type of important seminar. And finally, I should express my deep gratitude to all of you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, it's been a great pleasure to be associated with RIPSAT and also with the IPO. Thank you so much, Ms. Tripti, Mr. Vijay Kumar Shivpuje, sir, and also Mr. Dr. Shivkanta Das to provide us this opportunity. So we are concluding the session. Thanks all the participants for being so patient and interactive. Hope you all have a great day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.